Hello and welcome back to Lorcana Villain. My name is Baker, and today we're taking a look at three sets of top 8 deck lists from events that happened over the 15th and 16th of March. I'm a couple of days late reporting on this. I apologise for that. I had an awesome weekend at the Axion event, and then since coming home I've had a lot of home chores to do. If I've got time at the end, I'll talk a bit more about the Axion event. If I haven't, because we've got a lot to look at today, then I'll leave it for another video. But I did take a bunch of footage, and yeah, I'm definitely excited to talk about it. But shout out to the Axion event in general, and we'll come back to talk about it at length. But for now, we got 3 sets of lists to take a look at. The first of which was the InkInc Invitational, which is a fantastic name for an event. In the United States, this was 64 players and took place on the 15th of March. We'll also be taking a look at a 68-player event, also in the States, the Hunter Burton Memorial Open. This was on the 16th of March. This was actually my first time discovering the Hunter Burton Memorial Open, but it's been going on for quite some time. A really fantastic cause. I'm going to leave a link to this website down below if you'd like to go and learn a bit more. And we'll also be looking at a 128-player event in Germany, the Playing Ducks Home Masters event, also on the 16th of March. So 3 quite large events to take a look at. So we're going to get stuck right in. A shout out to the channel sponsor, Cardmarket. If you're looking for Lorcana singles at competitive rates, then check out Cardmarket. But let's look at some top 8 deck lists. So we are going to go through these lists event by event, as opposed to pairing up all the ink combinations. Obviously, I'll pair up the ones that are in the same event. But starting off with InkInc, we have Richie in first place with some classic SteelSong. Let it be said, I'll put my hands up. I said I feel like Will decks are really going to struggle going into the Sapphire dominant meta that it is appearing to be thus far. But here we have a player in a 64 or 68 player event going all the way with classic SteelSong. You love to see it. So of course, our full whole new world to refresh the hands and just keep applying pressure to the board. We've got singers here, Ariel to find songs and sing them, and 3 copies of Gaston as well with that 3 strength, which is going to keep it out of natural brawl range. Of course, they can lower that strength with the Coil, or if anyone's still playing an ice block, but I think Gaston has a decent amount of reliability. The standard 4 Storm, 4 Strength. We've got 3 Along Came Zeus. Very important for removing Tamatoas and Sharks. Plenty of other good targets, but those are going to be ones that are going to come up a lot. 2 copies of I Find 'em, I Flatten 'em, which is going to take advantage of all these decks that are going wide on items. Any of the Oswald builds, or even non-Oswald builds that are just running an awful lot more items just on top of the 4 Porp and the 4 Fortisphere. Things like Maurice's Workshop, Fishbone Quills, Lucky Dimes. You can get a lot of value out of this card, so I like the 2 count, and it's inkable. And we're running 3 copies of Neverland, which is just a vanilla 1 cost location, which gains 1 passive lore, only 4 willpower. So some decks are going to feast on this, the purple decks, although there don't seem to be as many purple decks around at the moment, or not if I have anything to say about it anyway. They'll be back, but at the moment then there's not a lot. So I think your odds of this just being instantly answered by Fox are throughout an event pretty good, that you're going to get value out of this. And of course, against the red decks, whenever they play B prep, or the turn that they want to play a B prep, if you put down a couple of these, then these lore ticks are sure going to add up. For the top line, traditional sort of stuff, of course, the Cindy, we got Daisy Duck here to quest big, Smee for the stats, Lawrence for the stats, and a nice Rapunzel trap. Of course, Pete to shut off those actions. 3 copies of the Troubadour, 2 cost inkable, 1 3 quest for 1, resist 1, and sing a 4. So very much akin to the Ursula 2-drop, who has the 4 willpower. And I did say at one point, even though Troubadour in a lot of instances is just better, I think the 4 willpower on the Ursula Vanessa is relevant enough in its synergy with Rapunzel that she would still be the card you would play over the Troubadour. But with the inclusion of Miss Bianca, it makes all the sense to run the Troubadour instead. She's a 6 cost inkable 5/5 quest for 1, and if you've got an ally character in play, you pay 2 less to play this character. So being able to play this on turn 4, she can be a singer. That 5/5 body is huge. Yeah, I absolutely love Miss Bianca. RESCUE, Rescue Aid Society, hands out high, touch the sky, you mean everything to me. I love her, she's gorgeous. And we got 1 copy of the big bad Gantu, Experienced Enforcer, who's a 4 cost uninkable 2/4 quest for 1. When you play him, characters can't exert to sing songs until the start of your next turn, which is going to annoy a lot of decks, especially the mirror. And don't get any ideas. Each player pays 2 ink more to play actions or items. If you've ever seen someone pay 5 for a Porpsicle, it's hilarious. That's not going to happen in this deck because there's only 1 copy of the Gantu. So pay 3 for a Porpsicle is our ceiling. But yeah, this is just going to annoy a lot of decks if they can't deal with this and they want to be able to chain together a lot of cheap actions and items. So I really like the inclusion. Overall, this looks super, super good. Again, I'm still a little surprised. I feel like if you're giving your opponent a new hand with the amount of blue steel and red blue decks at the moment that are just gonna be so thankful for you doing that, then it is a risk, but the deck seems to be good enough. I know member of the Villain Club for life. Whoa, Chuck. We are 2-0, by the way. I'll also put down below the second round of the ICL, which Villain Club, we are 2-0 at the moment, so let's go. But yeah, I know Wochuck is still enjoying SteelSong, and Zach Bivens submitted SteelSong for the first round of the LC3. He may have submitted it as well for the second round. I'm not sure. I need to check. Nonetheless, still a lot of believers in SteelSong. Oh, and of course, how could I forget the 2 copies of the World's Greatest Criminal Mind? A lot of targets for this, and it's inkable. A huge congratulations to Richie. And our other Amber Steel deck in this event, we have in top 8 Tyler, but not the classical SteelSong. This a much more aggro mid-range, what I would call a Bummy Junior sort of list. We're looking to be a lot more aggressive, not only with the daisies, but we've got 3 copies of Piglet in here, also 3 Lilos. New toy, we're running the Amber Steel Dual Link Penny Bolt Person. 2 cost inkable, 1/2 quest for 2. When you play her, you can remove 2 damage, up to 2 damage from chosen character, and they gain resist 1 into the start of your next turn. Important to note, you don't have to remove damage to give them resist 1. If that was the case, it would say remove up to 2 damage from chosen character to give them resist 1 until the start of your next turn. It's and, so you don't need to do the first bit. You can just give resist. And she quests for 2. This is a really nice addition to these more aggressive, much faster Amber Steel decks. We've got 2 Calhoun to control the board a little bit and hopefully give us a nice lore swing. Also 3 Captain Hooks here, respecting the need in the early game to have a couple of good challengers. 4 Docks, of course, to discard to replenish our resources. We've got Rapunzel's in here, so if we can get a nice draw off of her, then great, but otherwise we're looking to play out as much of our hand as possible and refuel with Docks. Me for the stats. 3 copies of Donald Duck, who's a bodyguard, and on play you give another character an extra lore for the turn, so that just extra 1 lore burst can be good. And being a bodyguard to protect your Piglet, your Lilo, your Penny, whoever it is. Lawrence, of course, another great quester and works well with our Rapunzel. 4 Pete for the actions, 2 of that big bad Gantu, so pay 5 for Porpsicle is on the table, my guys. 2 copies of Pluto, great bodyguard that's usually going to at least trade with something with that 5/5 before he has any damage. And then we've got 4 Storm, 4 Strength, and also utilizing 2 copies of I Find 'em, I Flatten 'em. So a lot of respect being given to these decks that want to go very wide with their items, and a great performance from Tyler. So congratulations to them. Going back to second place, we have a Blurple list, and this is not hugely surprising because I imagine Blurple has a pretty good match into Sapphire Steel. We have a couple of big bodies that can't be removed by their Zeus. We have ways of instantly removing their Tamatoas or Sharks in the form of the Hades here, and some lists may play Let It Go as well. And we're going to have much more reliable card draws, so I think Blurple could be fairly well positioned at the moment. We have 10 1-drops total, the 4 Porpsicle, and then we've got 4 Chernobog's Followers and 2 Magic Broom. Now, I've seen a lot of people say that Chernobog's Followers in particular feels a bit dead at the moment, what with the blue steel decks being able to play Storm. And I do think it's worse. I don't think Bog is unplayable anymore. I'm still playing it in Ruby Amethyst, and we'll get to that at a later point. The point I'm trying to make is that I don't hate still playing Chernobog, but I rate a lot more playing Diablo. I think those at a high count are much better personally. In Ruby Amethyst, I'm on 4 Diablo, 4 Bog, and 3 Broom. So I still like all of these cards, but since this deck is only playing 6 1-drops, I would still like to see Diablos here at the 4 count, and then 2 of the Bog or the Broom, whichever you prefer. That would be my preference personally. If they do put down a Bell turn 1, if you just put down Diablo, then at least you're immediately drawing if they do Storm it. I also think against Bell, it's more important than playing something on turn 1. It's important on turn 2 to play 2 1-drops. So on turn 3, you open yourself up to the Crab, and you would prefer both of those 1-drops to be Diablo. I'm going to get much more into this, not necessarily necessarily in this video, but I do want to do a video talking about the state of Ruby Amethyst and just talk about how I feel the deck sits at the moment in general. But yeah, moving on, I would prefer to see Diablos in here, but I don't think Brooms and Bogs are bad. I just think Diablos are super good. Nonetheless, our bounce package, we got 3 Snake, 4 Fox, 3 of those Crab, only 3 Goat and 3 Rabbit. 3 Rabbit I think is fine. I think I always want 4th Goat, as I cut an Elsa for the 4th Goat. Cut a 1-drop, cut a T-Po, cut a Genie. I think Goat is too good, personally. We are running 4 T-Po as one of our 2 ways of ramping, the other being 3 copies of Saudi Azure at Sea, 4 copies of Bell to hopefully take advantage of those 4 Porpsicle that we're running. We're not running any Flavisham, which is fine. We've got plenty of other good ways to draw. So if we can hit that high roll of Porpsicle, my chair is breaking, I swear. If we can hit that high roll of Porpsicle and Bell on turn 1, then great. That's a great character to put down on turn 1. And if not, we ink her. We have 4 copies of the Genie here. If there's still a lot of Sisu, then I still think this card is not great. But if there's more blue steel, hey, if they're playing their Zeuses on this, then they've got less Zeuses to help deal with your Elsa and Hades, even though they don't one-shot it, but they would combine it with like a challenge. But we're also running 2 copies of the Queen here, a new card that I've been super high on. I've removed it from my Ruby Amethyst list, unfortunately. I may go back to a bit of testing, but for now, I'm not sure that's where its home is going to be. I still think it could have a home, and maybe Blurple is that home. But yeah, if you're not familiar, 4-cost Inkable 4/3 quest for 1. You can exert, choose 3 cards from chosen opponent's discard, put them on the bottom of their deck to gain 3 lore. And if there was a princess, you gain 4. And obviously if they get SteelSong, there's lots of princesses, and any of the blue decks running Bell, that's another way of doing it. We don't have any ways of re-readying in this deck, so we can't take advantage of a potential high roll of exert, re-ready, exert, do this again. Obviously, this lives and dies by the amount of cards your opponent actually has in their discard. But later on in the game, when resources are low and you've already baited out a few of their removal cards, if you can get this down, it's a huge threat, and it is still inkable. 2 copies of Bell works nice with the Genies. I think I'd prefer to see this as Donald Duck, to be honest, the one that ramps. But Bell's still cool. 4 copies of Elsa. I think Elsa is the worst she's been since she came out, but she is still a super good target for obviously the 2 copies of the Floodborn that we're running, and she is still going to have her niche use cases if there does end up being a lot of green steel still in meta, then she's going to find a lot of use. 1 copy of Kuzco. We're not running Hideaway. We would prefer it on a stick so that we can put a body on board that can potentially quest for 2. Mention the Hades and Elsa. Hades obviously being spot removal, putting it in their inkwell, and Elsa will exert 2 characters down, and they can't ready at the start of the next turn. And she quests for 3, so that's pretty big. And 2 copies of the Library, which pair really nicely with this deck list, which has a lot of low-cost characters. If you can make a Bog or a Broom a stick, or even just moving a T-Po into the Library and force a challenge to draw a card, and that's pretty good. And 4 friends on the other side. So yeah, I think Blurple feels really good at the moment. I would just like to see 4 of the Diablos in here, to be honest. I think they're super goated. I think there's probably enough reason to run 2 of the Kuzco Hideaway effect. I think there's enough items in format, even if it's not an Oswald deck. A number of the blue decks are still running double or even triple dime to go along with the new Tamatoa. So I would like to see either an extra Kuzco in here or one Hideaway along with the Kuzco. But I really like how this deck is positioned, and a really great showing from Larry, so congratulations to them. Going on to top 4, the first of many blue steel decks that we'll be looking at across these 3 events. So we're starting off with Justin. We're running a Fishbone Quill to ramp. We also have 4 copies of Saudi Azure at Sea. And our 4th Flavisham is going to be our primary way of drawing cards. Of course, we've got the 4 Porp and the 4 Fortespear that are going to help us draw. Also 4 copies of that new Scrooge McDuck, who's turned out to be every bit as good as a 40 wood, 4-cost Inkable, 4/4 quest for 1. You can exert 4 items to play him for free, which I said I didn't think would happen that much, even though I thought the card would still see play. Turns out this happens a reasonable amount of the time. And when you play him, look at the top 4 cards of your deck and find an item. So maybe that's one of the cards that's drawing you cards. Maybe that's your win condition of a Lucky Dime. Of course, 4 Tamatoa to go along with all these items and combo with the Lucky Dime, but also 1 copy of Aerial Treasure Collector, who, if you have more items than your opponent, will quest for 5. and has ward, so it's very tricky to remove. 2 copies of Hades for some removal of our own, 2 Zeus, the traditional 4 Storm, 4 Strength, of course. Well, traditional now that we have Bell. You wouldn't have always played the Let the Storm Rage on in old no-wheel blue steel list, but now we have Bell, we have every reason to. But still 2 Fire the Cannons in here as well. I know Sky, also a member of Villain Club, will approve, still loves his Fire the Cannons. And of course the big, the really shiny new toy, although he's not the so shiny one, he's the happy as a clam, is our 6-cost inkable 4/5 quest for 2 Tamatoa. When you play him, return up to 2 items from your discard to your hand, which is just going to be you popping your Porpsicles and Fortispheres and getting them back most of the time. And if he quests, you can play an item for free, allowing us to get this lucky dime down without taking a turn off to do so, which is absolutely huge for Tipo. Also, so we've got plenty of ways of ramping. We can lean into whatever best suits our curve. And Tipo is just nice to have as an extra body to give you protection against Tremaine and Beaking, although there doesn't seem to be a lot of Beaking and Tremaine out there, but as a Ruby Amethyst player, I needs to bring it up. And 1 copy of Great Stone Dragon as another way of ramping from our discard. So yeah, fairly traditional no-wheel blue steel list, but obviously with the addition of Bell, and now we can play these 4 storms. But this is one of the lists of, one of the versions of blue steel, which looks really good. So congratulations to Justin. Also in top 8, we have David Solberg. A shout out to David, also known as the legendary Attack for 2, who's had a lot of success in Lorcana's lifespan. Also on what I have just referred to really as the no-wheel blue steel list. Our draw is coming from Flavisham and our Porps and Forts. Only 1 copy of Along Came Zeus. Also the 2 Fire the Cannons though, so putting respect there, and 2 copies of Hades. So a lot of similarities here. The full 4 Fishbone Quill and no Aerial Treasure Collector, but a lot of similarities, and I know David is a super good player, so congratulations to him. And the last blue steel list in this event, we have Will Russell in top 8, running what I would have usually called the Kiwi Bird, Justin Harlan Sweet style of deck, with the Alice Savvy Sailor, who's a 3-cost uninkable 1/4 quest for 2. She has ward, and whenever she quests, another chosen character of yours gets +1 lore and ward into the start of your next turn. But Artabax came out with a blue steel list at the Battle Bear event earlier, right at the beginning of the format, where he was playing a list that looked a bit closer to this, with the 4 Grandma Tala as another way to filter through the deck, but also give us a nice reliable singer for 4 copies of Along Came Zeus. I'm not sure if Artabax was running 3 or 4, maybe even 2. There was definitely a count there. So I think the difference really between the Harlan Justin Kiwi list and the Artabax list is the traditional Kiwi isn't playing this Along Came Zeus, and it has room for a couple of faster characters, whereas this version has that slightly more control variant with this Along Came Zeus removal and the Grandma Tala. So I'd say the Kiwi Bird version is probably slightly faster, whereas this version is able to deal with the board a little better. Also running 2 copies of Scepter of Arendelle, which is a 1-cost inkable item. You can exert and chosen character gain support this turn. Support being that when they quest, you add their strength to another character's strength until the end. Is it the end of the turn, or is it the start of your next turn? It's this turn. So that can certainly find some niche use cases, but it is just another 1-cost item that's going to work with our Flavisham, Tamatoa, and get this Bell online on turn 1, which seems pretty important, even though we are also running 3 Captain Hooks, so that we have other ways of combating the board. And yeah, just looking to play out our curve. We've got some songs to control the board, and we can build to this big Tamatoa to get back these Porpsicles and Fortispheres, draw even more cards. Looks super good, and I'm sure we will see many like it. Congratulations to Will. Going back to top 4, we have Zach Powers, which is a name I recognise, with some Lady and Lime. I am getting that over if it's the last thing I do. So this is a deck that's turned out to be pretty real. We are running 4 copies of the new Dual Link Tramp, 7-cost inkable 2 6 quest for 2. You pay 1 less to play him for each character you have in play, so theoretically you could play this on turn 4 if you played a character every turn and they've all survived. And when you play him, you draw a card for each other character you have in play, and then choose and discard that many cards. So that's going to help you find the actual cards, the pieces that you need, whether it's you need to snipe a Song of Ursula, you need more card draw of Rapunzel, you need aggressive questers, there's a big body on the board that you want to take advantage of, go to Margot. All of these things are great. Also, you're putting characters into the discard, which Lady herself can get back on play. You return up to 2 character cards with cost 2 or less to your hand, and she shift 3, which is relevant. We can shift on top of her, but it also helps us to enable this big bad Chernabog, who you pay one less to play him for every character in your discard, so you can play this cheap or even free, and when you play him, you shuffle those cards back into your deck, and he's just a big 9/9 quest for 3 beat stick. So that's pretty huge. We're running a lot of aggressive questers. The 4 Daisy, we've got 4 Nalas in here, which are hard to remove, so hopefully get a couple of lore out of her, and with that 4 willpower, she's great for setting up Rapunzel. Also 4 copies of Little John, doing exactly the same thing. And hey, if we're getting these characters back with Lady and just sticking 2 extra characters on the board with this big 4 willpower, which can be really annoying, then that can be quite reliable to sit on the board. They also pair really nicely with 2 copies of Merryweather, who when you play her, she's a 1 cost and you can pay 1 ink to give a chosen character plus 2 strength this turn. So suddenly turning these into a 2/4 is pretty good. Give you a nice surprising challenging turn out of nowhere. Also 3 copies of the 1-drop Pegasus, who has evasive to cheat out some early lore, and we are running 2 copies of the Floodborn, so the ability to shift and then give blanket ward is on the table. The 4 Piglet, the 4 Lilo, the 2 copies of Go-Go Tamago, and we are indeed running Lady and the Tramp. Lady's a 1 cost uninkable 1/2, and while you have a Tramp in play, she gets +1 lore. Of course, I already mentioned the 7 cost Big Tramp that we're inevitably building to, but this card is also seeming better than I originally thought it was going to be, and I recently pulled an Enchanted of this as well. Let's go. 2 cost inkable 1/3 quest for 1. If you have a Lady in play, then you pay 1 less to play him, so that's pretty cool. And when you play him, chosen character of yours gets +1 strength this turn for each other character you have in play. So one of the things that this deck is going to quite reliably do is go wide. The hope is that you also find a point where you can play Rapunzel or get some play Tramp and then Lady and get cards back in your hand, because you are inevitably going to run out of a hand. But you should be able to go nice and wide, and then playing this Tramp could give a lot of strength to a character. Like we talk about these 0/4s, could suddenly be picking off a really annoying target. So I do like the Tramps, that they're better than I originally thought. We're also running 2 copies of Meg, 3 cost uninkable 3/6 quest for 2, and when you play her, you discard a card or banish her. So again, we're just putting more cards in the discard to get back with Lady or fuel our Chernabog, and a 3/6 body on turn 3 is really good. I remember being quite high on this Meg when she was first revealed. Obviously didn't really find a place, but this seems like a good deck for her. I'm running 3 copies of Dale, who's a 4 cost inkable 3/4 quest for 1, and when you play in you put the top 3 cards of your deck into your discard to give chosen character -3 strength until the start of your next turn. So that second part of the effect is really good. Suddenly something that was sitting on the board like a bell now cannot threaten your characters as they turn sideways, so that's pretty good. But of course, again, fueling our Lady and Chernabog plays. So this deck seems like it could be kind of real. Will it break through this sea of incredibly powerful Sapphire decks? Is it quick enough? Will there be enough like Ruby decks to keep it at bay with their Sisus? We will see, but it's a deck that I think is super fun. Congratulations to Zach. And the last list from this event, we've got Joel in top 8, who's running this Amethyst Steel Giant Cobra list. A lot of the toys that we were playing with before. We got a 4/4/4 set of 1-drops. We've got 3 crab that are going to work really nicely with them. No locations in here. 3 Calhoun to control the board. We are a dock deck. We're not running any rabbits and not running any Along Came Zeus. Smee for the stats. We've got foxes here to make nice trades. White roses for lore. We are respecting items with these 3 Benger. Just popping a Porpsicle before the Flavisham play. Getting rid of that Fishbone Quill. And Maurice's Workshop. Maybe an Oswald cheated out an early lucky dime. A Benger is going to be pretty good. And he quests for 2. We've got Pete's here to shut off those actions. Strength for a Raging Fire is our one way of controlling the board. Goats, of course, for the lore gain. And Giant Cobra for the lore gain, who has that Vanish keyword, which seems nearly irrelevant. Like, it's going to be relevant if he gets Let the Storm Raged on. That's going to happen a lot, and then he's just going to immediately be banished, but you're often not going to care, because you most likely discarded a card when you played him to gain 2 lore. And of course, with docks, we can hopefully afford to do this discard and then replenish our resources. So yeah, Amethyst Steel. Where will it end up sitting in the meta? Again, in this sea of Sapphire, we shall see, but the deck looks really strong. Congratulations to Joel. Going over to the Hunter Burton event, in first place, Amethyst Steel. So I just said, hey, where is this going to sit in meta? And that question still stands. These are only early events where there is time for things to change, but a really good showing in this particular event. A slightly different list. We're again not playing rabbits or Zeuses. We do have those strength or Raging Fire as our removal option. We are running 4 copies of Genie. I think with these Genies you could probably warrant a Zeus or 2, but that seems fine. Like, this is the place for this Genie, if anywhere. To be fair, Blurple I think can get away with it. Only 3 copies of that Giant Cobra. And overall, a lot of similarities here, but we found room for, on top of the genies, 2 copies of Maleficent Biding Her Time, who is a card I really like because I think she's cool. Spessy really likes to actually play her, which I gotta say, I respect, to be fair. But yeah, first place in a 64-person event, or 68, the one or the other. But huge congratulations to Stephen. In second place on Blue Steel, we have Aaron Rubin, a bit of a legend in Lorcana, or otherwise known as Lorcana Bro, opting for an Oswald items build. So here we go. If you're not familiar, Oswald is a 2-cost uninkable 2/1 quest for 2. And whenever you put a card into your inkwell, reveal the top card of your deck. If it's an item, then you play it for free. It enters play exerted. Of course, we can ink every turn anyway, but we're running 3 copies of T-Bow and 4 copies of Fishbone Quill as another way of ramping to doing this. And so we potentially do this multiple times in a turn. And if we've got double or triple Oswald on the board, then we can get a lot of hits off the top of the deck and hopefully cheat in some items. I have seen a lot of misses with Oswald, but I have also seen some nice hits, and we're going to complement this with a wide item package. Already mentioned the Fishbone Quill, of course the 4 Pawp and the Fortisphere. Also 2 copies of Shield of Arendelle, which you can banish and give a chosen character resist 1. I've seen players debating between this and the Last Cannon, which gives you have to pay an extra ink for the ability, but it gives a character Challenger 3, which can of course matter. But even this resist 1 to the Tamatoa surviving Zeus, that is also a pretty good thing to do. And we're running 3 copies of Lucky Dime and 2 Maurice's Workshop, which allows you to, whenever you play an item, pay 1 ink to draw a card. And this can get really carried away if you've got this Workshop down, or even a couple of them, and you're able to play multiple Pawps and Fortispheres and just pay an extra ring to draw an extra card. You can really run away with cards. So a lot of this deck looking like we've seen this Workshop build built before. I know Zanzayed is very high on this. We got the 3 Scrooges in here, of course the 4 Bell. The big difference that Aaron Rubin is running is the Queen Diviner, 3-cost inkable 3/3 quest for 1. You can exert, look at the top 4 cards of your deck, reveal an item and put it into your hand, but if the item costs 3 or less, then you play it for free and it enters play exerted. So if you can make this queen stick on the board long enough to exert her, you get a 4-card dig to try and find, basically, other than the dime, any of the items you can cheat in. I think finding Maurice's Workshop, I just said it can get carried away, and I do think in some instances the deck can live or die by it. Don't get me wrong, if they're able to like stick a Flavisham and it sits there and draws like loads of cards because the opponent just can't answer it, then you probably don't need to lean as heavily into the Workshop, but it's just nice to have. But if you can't make Flavisham stick, I feel like Maurice's Workshop is pretty pivotal to you to gain that card advantage, to make these big pop-off plays that this deck can in the later stages of the game, when you play a Tamatoa and a Lucky Dime and you chain a load of items and you're just going like 0 to 20 in a turn with Tamatoa. But yeah, super cool. I know that DLC champion Illy will approve. I know Queen is a card that he likes a lot, and yeah, Aaron, another fantastic player, so congratulations to him. In top 4, also on Blue Steel, we have Ryan Nye, and this does look like a pretty traditional Kiwi Bird version of the list, except for the 3 copies of Glean, which is a 1-cost inkable action, banish chosen item. Its player gains 2 lore. So this can just be removal if in a desperate situation to get rid of a Workshop or a dime, maybe giving them that 2 lore is worth it in that particular game state scenario. But having this to use on your own items is pretty cool. We only have 4 Pawp and Fortisphere to utilize with this, but we're not playing Flavisham. Of course, we've got the bells here, so that's a way that these items are going to leave the board. But other than that, you've probably got good odds for a couple of these 1-cost items to stick. So in the later stages of the game, if you can find these gleans, this can be just the lore burst that you need, because this deck already gains a lot of lore, like magnificently, with the Alice giving extra lore to Mr. Smee, or any of your characters. We've got 3 copies of John Silver here to stop our opponent challenging, and he combos with Mr. Smee because he's a captain. Calhoun for that lore burst as well. We've got 4 copies of Pluto to protect our guys, and 4 Cogsworth for that blanket resist 1. So this is already a very aggressive deck, and we've got 3 copies of mana here as well to be another problem for the opponent. So yeah, these items representing 2 lore, if you find the Glean, is pretty cool. Again, not a lot of card draw here. We are living and dying by the dock. But it wouldn't be the first time I've seen that be enough, so a huge congratulations to Ryan. Going on to top 4, we have the first of 4 Emerald Steel discard lists to look at. Discard was feasting at this event. So a lot of the traditional sort of things. We've got the Prince John with Ward and to let us draw whenever our opponent discards. Only 1 copy of Hypnotize seems low. We are running 4 copies of Sudden Chill, which we can double sing if we've got Ursula Deceiver of all on the board. And she can also double sing the 4 Storm and the 4 Strength. We've got 2 copies of Find and Flatten Them to respect the items. 4 copies of We Don't Talk About Bruno, which allows you to return chosen character to their player's hand. And then that player chooses and discards a card at random. And if they've got no cards in their hand, then it's just spot removal. This is still important to have for things like Maui Sharks and Big Bad Tamatoa. 2 copies of Hidden Cove to fix maths. Keep characters out of the range of things like Brawl or Big Sisu. 3 copies of Heffalumps and Woozles, which is another song that we can double sing with Ursula, where a chosen character can't quest during their next turn and we draw a card. We're running 1 copy of Smash to do 3 damage to a chosen character, which there are a couple of characters that are like that you would benefit from having this immediately, like an opposing Ariel or the Gaston, something like that. Also for discard, we've got 1 copy of Lucifer. I've said before, with a lot of decks, the blue steel decks running less actions. Potentially you can really feast with this Lucifer, so you'll love to see it. Any quest for 2 and 4 copies of Ursula Deceiver. Also going to make our opponent discard and 1 copy of Anna, who is nice and diverse. We can either have our opponent discard a card, or we can give a character +2 strength, or we can banish a chosen damaged character, which is also very lovely. 2 copies of the Muses to work with this song package that we've got and bounce characters with 2 strength or less back to their owner's hand. 4 copies of Morph, which you can shift Diablo on top of him, but I think he's here really to complement the 4 copies of Beast Tragic Hero. Being able to play Shift Beast on 3 is pretty huge, so I don't hate it by any means. And of course that 4/4 Diablo line, an absolute must answer. And this deck also utilizing the new 4-cost Uninkable Gantu. Yeah, this looks nice. The 1 Smash and 1 Hypnotize is a bit random. I would also like to see the Floodborn Pete in here. I think that Pete really is that good. And he's another singer for your We Don't Talk About Bruno. But yeah, Emerald Steel feasting at this event. So congratulations to Derek on top 4. In top 8, we have a version by Parker, who is running that Pete that I love so dearly. Green Steel Dual Link, 6-cost Inkable, 5/5, quest for 2, shift 4, and we are running the 3-cost Pete, so that'd be relevant. And when he's exerted, opposing characters can't exert to sing songs, and your pirates gain resist 1, which is him and Mr. Smee. I think this is such a great big bulky body. The fact that we can shift it on top of a character we're playing anyway is super, super good. So yeah, I love this Pete. Also 1 copy of I Find My Platinum, and the 3/3 Morph and Beast line, although Morph can also, you can shift your Pete onto this Morph, so that's also very cool. And we're running 2 copies of Has Set My Heart. What is this song from? You got 5 seconds. What is this song from? Do you know? Do you know? I didn't know. I found out about 6 months ago, maybe longer, when I was revealing the Mickey Mouse Musketeer card, and I watched the film to get footage, and that's when I realised this song is from the 3 Musketeers. There you go. But yeah, banish chosen item. I think I'd just play 1-cost Clarabelle. I know you can sing this, so you don't need to use the ink. I don't know. I think I prefer 1-cost Clarabelle, and it also like threatens a shift into big Floodborn Clarabelle, even though you're not playing it, but your opponent don't know that. I think I prefer 1-cost Clarabelle. And if not, I think I even just prefer Benja. Or nah, maybe not, because you really need to play Ursula or Prince John on 3. Maybe that's why, right? So that on turn 2 you play Ursula or Morph, and maybe also hopefully shift Diablo. It means on your turn 3 you can play your John or your Ursula or your Pete, whatever it is you feel like you need to play, and then have either your Floodborn Diablo or your 2-drop sing this Has Set My Heart. Yeah, I've just talked myself completely the other direction. I like this as the inclusion. Also 2 copies of Anna, only 3 Smee, just seems outplaced to me, but this looks really good. Congratulations to Parker. Also in top 8 we have Richard, who is opting to play 2 copies of Benja instead of Has Set My Heart, which yeah, I respect, although as I just said, I actually think I might have been talked around to Has Set My Heart, but this deck not playing any Morphs, instead playing Calhoun. for a bit more board control, 4 copies of the Big Bad Pete, and we're seeing 1 Zeus for some extra removal, and 3 copies of I'm Still Here, which I absolutely adore. A great song to double sing with Ursula, and you can give resist 4 or resist 2 twice and draw 2 cards. And we're once again seeing 1 copy of the Lucifer, which can be very, very annoying. So yeah, congratulations to Richard. And our final Emerald Steel list is not a discard variant. Instead, we've got some pirate locations. I am getting ready to release a rogue deck lists video, and I have a list very similar to this, which is I've considered a rogue list. Maybe it's better. Either way, I absolutely adore it. We are running 4 copies of the John Silver from set 3, who's a 3-cost inkable 3/3 quest for 1 and gets resist 1 and an extra lore for each location we have in play. In that vein, we are running 2 copies of Deville Manor, 4 copies of Hidden Cove to fix maths, and Deville Manor has 1 passive lore, 3 copies of Nottingham for passive lore and 6 willpower, and 3 copies of the Seven Dwarfs Mine. When you move a character there, you can do 1 damage, and if it's a knight, you can do 2 damage. We are running 1 copy of Doc, so that is available, but these are just cheap locations that are going to combo with this John Silver and let him quest huge. We're also using 4 copies of the Big Bad Pete that we've already talked about, and 4 copies of Daisy Duck Pirate Captain. Whenever one of your pirate characters quests while at a location, draw a card. We have locations are many. Nearly all of them can be moved to for just 1, so if we put Daisy down and we're just questing with a hook or a small P, then we're just drawing cards, so that is really, really cool. We've got the 4 Storm, 4 Strength, 3 Zeus for removal. We've got that Diablo engine. On top of the 3-cost Pete, we are running 2 copies of the Pirate Pete, the 1-cost inkable 1/2 quest for 1, and when you play an action that isn't a song, you can banish chosen item. Unfortunately, we are not running any actions that are not songs, so that is never going to happen, but he is an extra Floodborn target for the Big Pete and an extra pirate who can trigger Daisy's ability. Yeah, I thought this deck looked fun and could like have a little bit to it, but performing this well is a little bit surprising, but I absolutely love it. A huge thank you and congratulations to Chase. And our final deck in this event, we have Max with that Ruby Sapphire Coil. 4 copies of the new Coil. Whenever you ink, chosen character gets -2 strength this turn. That is going to combo ever so nicely with the 4 Brawls, the 2 Madame Medusas, and the 4 copies of Big Sisu that we're running. Oh, and of course, 2 copies of the Daring Visitor Sisu. We've got 4 Tipo, 4 Sail the Azure at Sea for our ramp, also 1 copy of Greystone Dragon, and the 3 How Far I'll Go. This looking like a pretty old school Ruby Sapphire traditional list. We've got the 2 copies of Pirate's Life. We've got 3 copies of that big bad Maui Shark, who's going to work really well with all these actions, gaining us lore every time we play one, and if he can challenge something, we can get back an action. Only 1 copy of Be Prepared for the removal, but we are seeing 2 copies of Maleficent Monstrous Dragon, so a very, like, I would call this old school list at this point, because it's like been a while since we've seen the Maleficent Dragons, ever since the Shark variants really started to take over. But Max finding room for 2, which I like, and 2 copies of the new Tamatoa to work to get back these items, and 1 copy of Lucky Dime in combination with the 2 so shiny Tamatoa. And even without the Tamatoa, just this going with the Big Sisu is super good. There is something to be said for this being the first Ruby Sapphire list that we've looked at through 2 events so far. I will say there's only 1 in the last event that we're going to look at, so has Ruby Sapphire fallen off? You tell me in the comments below. Nonetheless, a huge congratulations to Max. And our final event going over to Playing Ducks, and I'm going to have to speed run this one. In first place, we have Bennett. I adore Bennett, a bit of a Lorcana sweetheart. Everyone loves Bennett, a fantastic player. A really, really nice guy, and I know this is an ink combination that he is a big fan of. No new cards whatsoever, so no new spice to talk about. This is your traditional discard under the sea variant. Our discard package is Prince John, of course, Ursula. We've got 4 copies of You Have Forgotten Me, 1 copy of Lucifer, and 4 Sudden Chill. And we don't talk about Bruno, is also discard. We've got that Diablo engine. We've got 3 copies of Sahis to help with opposing evasive characters and could just to be a reliable quester. And to sing our plethora of 2-cost songs, which are Painting the Roses Red, Bare Necessities, and Strike a Good Match, and the Sudden Chill. Strike a Good Match, letting you draw 2 and discard 1. Bare Necessities, take a look at the opponent's hand and take a non-character character card, so snipe away that fishbone quill or whatever's annoying you. Painting the Roses red, allowing you to draw a card and give -1 strength to up to 2 characters, which is not only going to help with math, challenging math, but it's going to get characters into range for the Muses. And Under the Sea, which is an 8-cost uninkable sing together song, puts all opposing characters with 2 strength or less on the bottom of their player's deck in any order. So Roses is going to get characters into that range, and we're running 4 copies of Kida, who on play does -3 strength to all characters on board until the start of your next turn. So make our opponent discard, make them play in a way where they're just playing things to the board so that they take value away from your discard, and then lower the strength, send them all to the bottom of the deck with Under the Sea. It's a filthy strategy, and it is a surprise to see it in first place at this over 100 person event. I mean, it's not a surprise because it's Bennett, right? Bennett's a great player. But yeah, is this a deck that we need to fear in set 7 format? If Bennett has anything to say about it, and Kawar, I know he likes the Zinc combination, then yeah, we will see, but congratulations to Bennett. In second place, we've got McGable with that Artabax sort of version of Blue Steel that we looked at earlier. 4 copies of Grand Martala to sing the 3 copies of Along Came Zeus. We got the 3 Alice, so that we are just a super aggro deck, playing our curve. We've got Captain Hook for nice challenges. We've got 4 copies of McDuck Manor to create that 2-pronged attack. Flavisham is our primary draw engine. But of course, Tamatoa's getting us back Porpsicles and Fortress Spheres is going to be super good. So yeah, no surprise to see this list doing well in another event. So congratulations to them. In top 4, we have PD Masters with a near identical list. They have traded Alice and Pluto for Benja and Lawrence. Other than that, the exact same deck. Oh no, there's also one less Along Came Zeus in here, but remarkably similar lists. Congratulations to PD Masters. In top 4, we have IKO. Again, a very similar list, but they're running 2 copies of Let It Go for a bit more removal, and we are running 4 copies of Doc to be our primary way of replenishing our resources, and we're running 2 copies of Simba for that filter to get cards into the discard and just get uninkables out of our hand and draw pieces that we need. Other than that, doing a lot of the same sort of things, so congratulations to them. In top 8, we have Maya. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, apologies, but another SteelSong list performing very, very well. So perhaps I was wrong. This list looks very similar to the first one we looked at. We're seeing 3 copies of the Troubadour. We've got that Miss Bianca in here. 2 copies of Prince Naveen. I'm not sure if he was in the first list, but 4-cost uninkable 3/3 quest for 2. He's a singer 6, and on play you can play a song of cost 6 or less for free. So to make sure that you get that whole new world playoff if your opponent's been interfering with your singers, or for just a nice surprise Zeus to get tempo back on the board. Both of these sound good. Again, seeing 2 copies of Find and Flatten them, so a lot of players really respecting these decks that want to go wide with items. But other than that, we've talked about most of these cards, so congratulations to them. Next up in top 8, we've got Der Hut. A lot of similarities, except this player is using 2 copies of Piglet for a bit more aggression. We're also running 3 copies of the new Aurora, Waking Beauty. 3-cost inkable 1/4 quest for 2. She's a singer 5, and whenever you remove 1 or more damage from a character, ready this character. She can't quest or challenge for the rest of the turn. So the way that we can get this online is like we have her sing something, or we have, to be fair, we have her quest, whatever, and then heal something up with Rapunzel, and then we can re-ready her. She can't quest again, or like maybe the first time you didn't quest, you challenged or you sang something, but once you've re-readied her with her ability, you can't have a quest, but you can have her sing a song. I'm not sold on her. Like, I think if you are playing her, you want to play Penny, Bolt's person, to give you another card in the deck that can heal to potentially get this online. I think then I would understand it more. I think other than that, I would prefer to just see this be Gaston. I know she quests for 2, which is alluring, but we've got a lot of characters that quest quite big. So that'd be my preference, but total respect, and nice to see someone like utilizing this, trying it out. And we're seeing 1 copy of Bagheera, who's a 5-cost inkable 4/3 quest for 2. He has bodyguard. He got bodyguard. During an opponent's turn, whenever this character is banished, deal 2 damage to each opposing character. I thought this card would be really good, man, and I still think he's okay. If nothing else, he's a 5-cost character to sing a whole new world and be a bodyguard. I think In the Mirror is probably the best place for this. Also, some Amethyst Steel decks that have some low willpower characters, then Bagheera could certainly find some value. It's going to depend on how much Sapphire there is about, really. really, which will determine if Bagheera can succeed. But again, love seeing the new cards utilised in these decks that are a tale as old as time, essentially. So huge congratulations to The Hut. And our final deck of the day, we have Dave playing what I would call DK Shark, courtesy of DKP himself. We've got the 4 copies of McDuck Mana to make our opponent want to turn sideways, and then we're going to hit him with Super Goof to gain lore. We're going to challenge with the Mauis to get back actions, and Mauis otherwise are just going to sit there and let us gain a lot of lore from playing these cheap actions. We've got 3 Develop Your Brain, 4 Sail, 4 Vision. We've got 4 How Far I'll Go. We've got 2 Let It Go for removal, and 4 Be Prepared for removal. 2 copies of Hideaway, respecting the locations and the items like Workshop and Dime, etc. This deck was doing so well towards the later stages of previous format. Will it continue to thrive as DKP did with it? Certainly perform well at this event. It'll be very interesting to see if it survives the test of time over set 7 format. Nonetheless, congratulations to Dave. Alright, I did the thing again where I specifically left a list until last and then forgot about it and finished recording. So I'm doing this in post, so you get no video cam for this one. We've got Ruby Amethyst in top 8, the one and only Ruby Amethyst list across these 3 events, courtesy of TSR McCoy. Now, I talked a little bit earlier about my opinion on the 1-drops. I think Diablo is the most valuable one at the moment, so I would always want that out of 4. I still like having Chernobogs and Magic Brooms. On the play, Chernobog is always still just fine. You just, even if they go Bell, you pop it before they can Storm. On the draw, it's not so much about playing something on turn 1, but on turn 2, you want to be able to put down 2 guys. Now, the best case scenario is 2 Diablo, so they Storm 1, and then hopefully you can crab the other, and then draw a card off the Diablo, and you've stuck a crab on the board. But mostly it's just important that something survives. It's exactly the same as we've had against Cinderella Ballroom Sensation. I'm not actually all that scared of the new Bell. Yes, the 3/3 is a little bit more annoying, but we can deal with it in the way that we were dealing with Ballroom Sensation Cinderellas in the past. If you know how to play against that, then you should know how to play against Bell. In the mid to late game, the Bogs and Brooms are mostly going to be ink. Perhaps you can get away with a turn where you put it down and you can get some value with Library, but I still think they're perfectly fine inclusions, and you want a high counter 1-drops because you want to, again, be able to assure that you can play double 1-drop on 2. This player also won 3 Kuzco, which I absolutely love. We are off Flynn's at the moment, and again, I've said this before, I do think there could be a point where Flynn actually ends up coming back. But at the moment, Kuzco does seem a lot safer. Guaranteeing that you're going to be drawing a card with him works really well with the crab, and I just love that all of our 1-drops are just filtering through our deck. We're only running 3 Snake, which I'm not a fan of, but the card that I do like in this list is the new Queen of Hearts, who's a 2-cost inkable 1/4 quest for 1, and while this character has damage, she gets +3 strength. So the high roll here is you play Queen of Hearts on 2, and then there is an opposing target for you to be able to play Crab, give Challenger to Queen of Hearts, take that character out and survive, and then she stays on the board with 4 strength. So in a perfect world, we're going to get a 2-for-1 out of this Queen of Hearts. I haven't tested her yet. I like it in theory. I do think that she's going to be more valuable in the early game because you want to create this situation where she's got to take the damage, right? So the best way to do that is to boost her with Crab. Hopefully she's taking something out and surviving. As you go further into the game and your opponent's got things like Scrooge or Tamatoa down, then you're not surviving the first challenge, so you're not getting that 2-for-1. In the early game, I think she's super good. Overall, I still prefer Kuzco. I think Kuzco with the +3 challenger from Merlin Crab is going to be enough to take out a lot of things. Yes, the Queen of Hearts could potentially survive and get a 2-for-1, but I like Kuzco being able to draw in the mid to late gate part of the game. Kuzco is a reliable card to put out. You're always going to draw off of him. Perhaps they've got board wipe and Queen of Hearts would get you no value, whereas Kuzco does. But I do like the Queen of Hearts, and I'm definitely keen to do some testing with her. 4 Crab makes all the sense with these Kuzcos, these Queens, and these Diablos. Again, I'd like to see Diablo at 4. 4 Sisu, I still enjoy. I'm only playing 3 at the moment, but I still like including Sisus, and I think 4 is perfectly reasonable. Even without Flynn Rider, Sisu is just so well statted, questing for 2. She can have potentially a huge amount of strength, so I still think she's worth the inclusion in RA. We're seeing 2 genies here, which I'm not a big fan of in Ruby Amethyst anymore, to be honest, but did well for TSR at this event for sure. 4 goat, 4 rabbit. We're seeing 1 bell. Again, the card is fine. I'm not a huge fan. And 2 Elsa. If you are in a heavy green steel field, then this could become necessary. I'm not playing any Elsa at the moment, but if Emerald Steel does end up being very, very popular, then these will end up having to come back into the deck, and maybe this just being preemptive from TSR McCoy, expecting a lot of green steel in the room, or at least being prepared for it. 3 Maui, I think, is the minimum. 3 or 4. It's still important to be able to respond to locations. You do see libraries. You see a lot of McDuck Manors. The Kiwi list, you want to be able to take out the Alice, and you need a strong card that you can play on 5 on the draw. 2 copies of Tremaine. I think this is the lady of choice from now on. You might see some Medusa. You'll see Medusa in red-blue lists, obviously, but in Ruby Amethyst, I don't think you're going to see as much Medusa at the moment. Maybe if Amber Steel and Green Steel do end up being a lot more popular than I expect them to end up being, then we might want Medusa again, or we may go back to wanting to play the Floodborn Sisu instead. But I think Tremaines are really important in this heavy Sapphire meta. You need to be able to take out Sharks for red-blue. You need to be able to take out both Tamatoas. So yeah, I love Tremaine. I'm playing B-King Undisputed as well at the moment, which I'm really enjoying. Only 2 Brawl. I get it. I think it is still so important to be able to instantly remove a Flavisham. I mean, hopefully sometimes you get other value from this Brawl. You run into Diablos, an Aerial, an opposing Genie, things like that to get your value. But Flavisham, I think, is as must answer straight away as he's ever been. They're always going to get the initial 2 cards for putting him down. You don't want that Flavisham sitting there and generating more card advantage. We need to be faster than that, so you need to be able to answer this Flavisham straight away. So I think you need to play 4 Brawl. 3 B prep, I get it, it's tempting. I've switched, I've committed myself to always running 4 B prep, and I've been happy with that decision. 4 Friends, 2 Library I like, and I do also like the 2 copies of Queen's Castle. Against a lot of these Sapphire lists, Queen's Castle is going to be pretty good. Yes, a lot of them are running like Double Hideaway or Kuzco's, things like that. But hey, then they're ramping for us. Like, make them have to deal with it. And if they don't have the answer, then the clock that this can provide is pretty good. I definitely want to do some testing with Queen's Castle soon. TLDR, I don't think Ruby Amethyst is as dead as people say. I really like the Queen of Hearts in this list. I like the Kuzcos. I like that they're still playing a high counter 1-drops. I'd like to see a full 4 Diablo. I can get on board with the Elsa if you're expecting a lot of Emerald Steel. I'm not a fan of Genie and Belle in this list in particular, but they're not bad cards by any means. But I think Snake and Fox, they're still as good as they ever were. Even if you're not necessarily getting the value from the rush on Madam in Fox, just having these bounce effects to keep rebouncing your rabbit, your goat, reuse your Tremaine, even the crab, bringing that back to your hand can be super good. We're already at a high count, but I still think Snakes and Foxes are fantastic. But a huge congratulations to TSR McCoy getting top 8 with Ruby Amethyst in a over 120 person event, when a lot of people thought this deck was completely dead. And I'm with you, TSR. RA still has some legs. And that is it. Super, super long video, so I'll talk about Axion in a future video coming soon, but we're going to leave it there. That's it from me for now. Thank you so much for watching. If you're brand new to the channel, please subscribe for all things Lorcana. Hit that like button to show support, and we'll see you soon.